We got Dune, finally. Denis Villeneuve's blockbuster, again, highly anticipated spice opera, which I like what we're calling it. I like what a lot of critics are calling it, a spice opera. At first, I'm not going to lie, the first review I saw that had that about 2 weeks before it actually came out in theaters in the US, I thought it was a typo at first, but then I remembered from the original Dune. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the thing that like makes the world go round 33,000 years from now. But yes, we have Dune. We have Dune to talk about. Denis Villeneuve's brand new blockbuster. Joe actually read the novel of it as well, which is good too, because he provides a little bit of perspective on that. And yeah, a lot to unpack with this movie. Star-studded cast: Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, who's in it for a cup of coffee and a sweet roll. A lot of Jason Momoa, even too, in a little bit of a background role. Lots of stuff to go on here. Immaculately visual movie too. And it's I'll start just by saying this. I'm rambling a little bit. I'll start by saying this. Denis Villeneuve, um, excellent visionary director to say the least. He's made. I know we like a lot of his movies. Blade Runner 2049. There's Arrival. He really French Canadian director really started with a lot of different like oddball French movies. I remember Incendies when that came out. That was a big one at the Oscars that year. Then he made his American debut with Prisoners, which is still one of my favorite movies of the last decade,
Same.
quite honestly. Just a brash, muscular, great thriller. Then you have Sicario, obviously, Arrival. So, no better director right off the bat than to take a stab at a movie that was considered unfilmable for decades. I'll just start not even touching on the movie. I just want to mention this. If you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend reading about Alejandro Jodorowsky's. He's a Chilean French director. His Dune movie that was conceptualized for years, the 10-hour epic with Orson Welles, set to star
Yeah.
Orson Welles, Salvador Dali. I think even Mick Jagger was going to be in the damn thing too. And it never came to fruition. The closest thing we got was a documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune
Yeah.
in 2013 that was sort of assembled from his many notes and scrapbooks on it.
That
And then we got the Alan Smithy, aka David Lynch, directed 1984 movie, and that's about all I want to say about that thing. Take it, Joe.
No, I wanted to bring up that documentary because I've been telling people, like, once part two of this comes out and you get done watching it, or if you ever read the book, definitely check out that documentary because it's a wild ride to see like what that man wanted to do with this. Um, but yes,
Yeah. There's a reason it was going to be 10 hours, and there's a reason there's a kind of a reason it didn't get made. I think the budget kept exploding on it.
yeah.
But I'll turn it over to Joe, though. Joe's chomping at the bit to talk about this. Let me give him the floor.
Yeah, no. So yes, the movie is based on the book. And it's basically, like if you think about the hero's journey, it follows the same thing. You follow a character named Paul, played by Timothy Chalamet, going to a planet where they need to get a resource called spice. If you've seen, like Steve said, the David Lynch film, you're familiar with this plot and everything. If you've seen Star Wars, you're familiar with this plot and everything. What makes Dune so special, though, is what they end up doing with the hero's journey. However, the biggest problem with this movie, and I hate to start off with a problem, is that you don't really get to see that in Dune Part 1, because Dune Part 1 is a lot of setting up and exposition for the first hour and like 30 minutes of this movie.
That's right. We got a nine-figure budget, sexy ass prologue
Yeah.
right here.
And that's not to say, like, even though I'm saying that, that's not to say, like, I wasn't entertained when it was doing this. No, I very much was, because one, the film looks beautiful. It's shot so damn good, thanks to Greg Fraser, who's going to be working on the upcoming Batman movie and worked on movies like Zero Dark 30, The Gambler, Foxcatcher. He did cinematography for those movies.
He did Foxcatcher. That's
Yeah.
right, and that was a good looking, interesting movie.
Yes, it was. Yeah. And then the other blockbusters he worked on, he did some episodes of The Mandalorian. Like I said, he's done Dune, obviously. The upcoming Batman film, and he's returning for Dune Part 2 as well. So it's a very beautiful looking film. And as somebody who read the book, a lot of the architecture that they describe in the book is very, much captured here, as well as just the cinematography kind of just goes hand in hand with that, where it shows like how wide and vast this desert is and how big these ships are, and the description of like, you know, the armors, the description of the Harkonnens, which are the villains of this movie. Everything visually about this movie, everything technical about it, to where even Christopher Nolan came out and said, well, damn, like, you know, Denis Villeneuve just proved me wrong that, like, you know, having special effects and practical effects in the same movie can look this good. It's so amazing to see and look at, and like, that's not to say like the story isn't either. The story is good. It's just the base of it, though, like, for the most of the time when you're watching this movie, it's just a lot of exposition. As Steve was saying, Zendaya, she shows up for the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes. The rest of the time you see Zendaya in this movie, get ready to just see her walking in a desert. Momoa, who plays a character that's much bigger, even in the first half of the book, Duncan Idaho, he's only in it for a few minutes. Oscar Isaac, another one, like, he is Timothy Chalamet's father. He plays the Duke in this movie. Only in it for about, I would say, 15 minutes total. And it sucks because the scenes between Paul and the Duke in the book are very good and very much make you like care for their relationship, as well as House Atreides, the house they represent, to go to this planet and help like salvage the spice there, to give it to the Emperor. The only person I really thought that actually played the character well, translated from the book, but even like looking at it as like a standalone character that I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm actually like really getting like, you know, who she is and everything, was Lady Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson, who I felt like, all right, if there's anybody in this movie that is at least like I'm getting some character development, it's her, because of the, you know, the panic that she has about her son possibly being this chosen one, her husband that, you know, is going to this planet, like, you know, you very much sense like a motherly, like, you know, protection over Paul with her, as well as the rest of her family. And I thought she played it very well. And it sucks to say that I can't say the same for Timothy Chalamet as Paul, who, he did a good job. Don't get me wrong. Everybody in this movie's great. They play their roles so damn good. But it's like none of their arcs are completed, or they're just getting started by the end of this movie.
You know, and before I throw it over to you, Dom, too, it's one of those things, too, where I've never read Dune. I knew kind of the skeleton of the story. I have seen the 84 movie. That was several years ago. But it's one of those things, too, where it's like, you know, I'll get into my biggest gripe with the movie, which is in line with Joe's to a degree. I'll get into that later after the intermission. But, like, you know, this story, there's a reason this thing was called Unfilmable for so many years. The writing process alone, forget the budget, throw the budget out the window for a minute. The writing process on this alone is excruciating, is absolutely, positively excruciating, with the amount of characters, the amount of buildup, the amount of scene setting.
The amount of world building you have to do. Which the film does great. Like, I'm not discrediting that, but it's just like you have to get this done in one film. That's why all due respect to Frank Herbert,
the late great Frank Herbert, that dude had to be a cellar dweller in order to come up with this sort of thing. This guy had to be, you know, that Always Sunny Charlie Day meme with the Post-it notes and like the lines and everything. Like, that had to be this guy's basement at the end of the day, coming up with such a wild and detail-oriented story. And it's funny, you know, and we'll touch on this. I don't even want to bring it up. Dom, take it from me. I'll touch on it later.
Yeah. You know, viewing this movie, I realized something, and that is I am not a fan of high fantasy at all. High fantasy. So elves, don't care about them. Orcs, dwarves, all that stuff, I don't care. But I'll make an exception for Lord of the Rings. I will make an exception for Lord of the Rings because they are the OGs. That's the OG fantasy stuff. Tolkien right there. I'll make an exception. But everything else, I don't really care. Anything else with that aesthetic. Dune, despite having so many things that seemingly aren't recycled, the first half hour of this movie, I'm like, damn, this movie's really trying hard to not be Star Wars. Really, really hard, right? And despite having a lot of the, you know, visual and world building tropes of sci-fi, I made an exception for it because Dune is one of the OGs as well. Landmark work of soft and hard science fiction. Soft science fiction being, a little more fantastical, but having those space and technological elements, and then hard science fiction, which is like really more in the line of like Arrival, Denis Villeneuve's Arrival, where it's like, okay, everything is as precise as we can possibly make it, very technical. But all that stuff aside, I'll make an exception. Even then, however, I did find myself getting a little bit feeling that the story was generic.
Yeah.
Again, I could put that aside because I know it was an OG, and this whole franchise has been whipped around. Could barely even be a franchise because they could never get it off the ground. But it's been whipped around so much, and it's like, this feels bad for what should be the Lord of the Rings of its of sci-fi, of its genre. Yeah, exactly. So to see it realized well, it's like, you know what? There's a kid growing up seeing Dune right now, and they're absolutely loving it, having never seen other things like this before. Awesome, that's great. The thing that was like, okay, I'm in. That freaking worm scene, man. That is, when it comes to Dune, there are two things with Dune: sand and that fucking worm. That's all people know about Dune in the mainstream. The worm more than sand. And if they can pull it off, then this movie has legs.
The worms.
God damn. When that scene with the worm, they killed it. That Hans Zimmer score killed it. The sense of scale massacred it. When it comes out, the sense of awe and power of this thing nailed it. I'm like, okay,
you got me. No, you're absolutely right. Because like as me who read the book, like when that scene happens, that's where the book really starts to pick up. And it sucks that like when that scene happens in the movie, you're like almost done with the movie. You got about another like 40 minutes left, and then we're done here. It just makes me go, oh my god, like part 2 is gonna be amazing if they actually like put this much care and effort that they're putting in the part 1. And I know it will because it's Denis Villeneuve. Because Dom, everything you're saying, I totally see it from both your guys' perspectives, because you guys don't, you guys are viewing this as a movie alone, and I'm trying to do that as well. It's just hard for me to also think of like, well, damn, but I know like the second half of this book, it really does play with your expectations on the hero's journey and really does mix things up. I don't want to say what it is because I want to ruin Dune Part 2 for people before it comes out. But like, I'm very much looking forward to where it's going, especially some of the scenes they do set up that do kind of give a little bit of a hint to what's going to happen in Dune 2. But go on, Dom. Sorry.
No, I just want to give a shout out to this film's sound design. If there's any movie you're going to see in theaters, I wouldn't even say, God damn, HBO Max screwing over this film just because, I mean, I'm sure it's doing well actually in terms of the profit, but in terms of the sound design, oh my God, please see this in theaters. If there's one movie you're going to see, it's this. It's probably going to be this. I saw it in the Tivoli. It actually blew, I think this film blew out a speaker, because when we watched it, the back left speaker at the Tivoli, which is usually great, had like a speaker that was the whole time. Like, every time that worm, because the worm was like maximum intensity, and like the war scene too, it was like, I'm like, oh, this blew out. A previous show.
Hans did his job.
Yeah,
Hans
exactly.
did his job, because not only did he try to break the sound barrier, he tried to invent new sounds on top of it.
Yeah.
And he did a damn good job. And I've been critical of Hans Zimmer's scores in the past in some ways. He brought justice to this movie on top of the visual hypnosis that takes place. But this is a movie born to be in the theater.
Absolutely.
So much so that it's going to really, in a way, suck. I feel like once a year almost we get a movie that is so tailor-made to be part of the theater experience. Maybe not once a year, maybe once every couple years. I mean, the last major one I can think about is Dunkirk. That's the last major one, and it's been about 4 years since that movie, shockingly. Don't look now. But every once in a while, it's like we get a movie that plays so damn well in the theaters that I just think, this is not going to be the same on FX when there's Viagra and CarMax commercials in between. This is just not going to be the same.
Well,
even if you have a respectable sound system, I don't think, like a sound bar and a big ass TV, I don't think that this is going to be replicated very easily.
I actually throw one into the ring as well, as like it was meant for theaters, and it came out actually more recently, 1917. The Sam
Absolutely.
Mendes, like that was definitely another one too, and again another war film though. But I saw this in Dolby, and yeah, it brought back like everything. It's like, oh yeah, this is why I love going to the movies, is where you get these movies where it is a director's vision, like Dunkirk was, like 1917 was, and it's got a big budget. And it just wants to sell you on how damn good he can make a movie. And Denis Villeneuve delivers. Like, I mean, my chair was like shaking like this. I would like sit up like during action scenes. I would be like, like just kind of like looking all over the place during like wide shots of this desert. Yeah, it's just a desert, but deserts look beautiful in this movie. There's just something about them. Yeah, it absolutely is a movie made for the theater experience.
And sci-fi and fantasy movies age best based on how well their themes carry over. And when it comes to the themes of Dune, which obviously address colonialism, the theft of natural resources, and so on and so forth, this movie keeps those intact. And it's odd, and then again, I don't want to bleed too much into the further discussion too, but it's odd given the fact that like this is the granddaddy of sci-fi movies and fantasy movies and epics to begin with, that it feels like the cultural impact of Dune is still very niche compared to its, the ones that were undoubtedly inspired by it, like Lord of the Rings, like Star Wars, namely, so it's interesting to see that, but it's also profound in a way to not only see this movie come to fruition in one way or another, helmed by one of the best directors working today in Denis Villeneuve by any stretch of the imagination, but also just given the fact too, that the themes are very well presented. I would argue the themes here are as well presented as the visuals and this cutting edge sound design at the end of the day too. I don't know how it holds up to the book, but I'm sure Giuseppe over here will educate me.
This is the thing. The movie did it better than the book here, because the book gets lost in talking about so much stuff. The book is so, I mean, like, just to give you an idea, and I wanted to show this, like,
is it the Tolkien approach where it's like they go on for like a tree for like 30 chapters or something?
The Ayn Rand school of writing.
The sandworm gets like 3 chapters of itself. You might as well like he's granted that because he's a sandworm, but this movie has an index and like a glossary for you to use to learn more about Dune.
Yeah.
And to me it's like the themes of the book get a little bit lost because of that. Because there is so much world building going on in the book, where Denny, I felt, found actually a good balance, because this world is beautifully crafted, it feels lived in, and you feel like you're actually a part of this world throughout all of its scenes. And like you're learning with Paul how the planet Arconis works, and like everything, like the how the air works on this planet, what is spice, all this stuff. And you'll even learn more when we get to part 2. But the themes itself, oh my god, the movie did it so much better than the book, because the book gets lost talking about all this other stuff that like you kind of it loses focus on what the themes are.
It gets lost in the terminology.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of themes, it is striking how a novel penned in 1965. It's like, oh, okay, they're talking about Afghanistan, and then you come to 2021, it's like, oh, they're talking about Afghanistan. Cool, same thing. But in any case, as someone, me, who is like inundated with useless trivia with all these sci-fi worlds, Star Wars, Star Trek, Warhammer, freaking Halo, I have read so many wiki articles on all these individual universe wikis, fandom wikis. I hate it to a degree, but it's like I'm tied to it because I've read so much of it. As someone who's done deep dives, it's like I kind of hate this. And again, it is amazing how even though I am just kind of jaded with at least sci-fi to a degree, particularly when it's done poorly, even then, Villeneuve makes this work so well because the exposition, the first 40, everything pre-worm, before they introduce the worm and things really start to pick. I know.
But really, you're so right, because that's when it becomes a blockbuster, is when that thing shows up.
No, yeah, it really does. But even then, you know what carries it? That was opening 40-ish minutes is the artistry.
Yeah.
In so much is the cinematography and the set design and how tangible so many things feel. All right, this isn't a SYFY sci-fi original movie with some cheap or like CW-esque CW level CGI. This is some good stuff here that you're getting. The cinematography, I don't even know what planet this was. It's like the bad guy planet, the Emperor planet, the Stellan Skarsgård that planet. Yeah, all that stuff. It's like, god damn, I was getting like, yeah, this is definitely the same guy who made 2049 Blade Runner, because
you can tell that
this is some cinematography, like god damn,
capital C cinematography.
100%. The shadows, the color, the everything in that sense. I wish I could do like a breakdown bit by bit, and believe me, there's going to be YouTube videos about this in the years to come.
Oh, he already has his Vanity Fair like video breaking down shots of this movie, and I watched it.
Yeah, and that stuff, it's so interesting and it's so meaty that even if you're the most casual viewer who's just waiting for the worm to show up and the war scenes to show up, you don't realize it, but that stuff carries so much. It does impact you. It really does. If not the first time you watch it, upon later rewatch, and it gets you through it. And the work there should not go unrecognized.
Now, the movie I'm about to say, I think one is a better movie than Dune, but it gave me the same feeling. The Fellowship of the Ring, I feel like gave me the same feelings I was having with this movie, but it just felt like a complete movie by the end of it. Where it's like I'm being introduced to a world, how it works and everything, and it's like, while we're taking all this time to set up what are the rings, who is, all these villains, the orcs and everything, everything looks so beautiful. As much as I'm like we're sitting around with elves and dwarves and everything talking about this and the politics of this whole thing, it looks so damn cool to look at. It's just like, it's so cool to see and everything, and Dune captures that as well. It's just like, wow, like I haven't had this feeling again with a universe being introduced to me, and something that I'm familiar with from the book even too. I've never had this much fun just being like, man, like it's cool just to see how stuff works in a movie. Like we don't really get that with sci-fi blockbusters anymore, because most of the time they just want to be a Force Awakens, even what Star Trek became, which I do like the new Star Trek films, but let's be honest here, they just wanted to be action films. We haven't really gotten like another sci-fi movie where it's just like, no, we're just here to explore a world. Yeah, there'll be action and everything, but we're gonna take our time.
I will never forget that quote from Chris Pine, where he's like, Chris Pine, who is in the new Star Trek movies, and he's like, I don't think we can ever make a cerebral Star Trek film ever again.
That might be like the fourth time you've brought that quote up in the last
and it's
I would say 3 months.
And I bring it up because it's so indicative of so many things, and you could not have said it more about I even sympathize with it to a degree, because you probably can, I don't know, but it's just like Star Trek was built to be cerebral, not action, and that's where we are with the franchise now, and it's incredible.
I mean, there's a lot to praise here too. The thing that I will say though is that, and this is where I'll introduce my only gripe, and it's the big one, but it doesn't derail the experience, and it doesn't make me advise anybody against seeing this. And maybe this is a me problem, I don't know, although I don't think it is, because I did see some discourse online throughout the last couple of days that kind of echoes my sentiment on there, is that like I was more consistently impressed by this movie than I was consistently entertained. And that is my major thing. And the reason I say that too is that I can sing the praises of the aesthetics all day long, and I certainly will. but I was not grabbed by very
Yeah.
many people in this movie. I was not connected to these characters. And that's a big problem for me. And I am also not a big, I don't know how many times I have to say this. I'm also not the person to go to with science fiction and fantasy to begin with. So I lean more heavy when we do these kind of reviews on you two, gentlemen, because you two are more well-versed and passionate about this. So your opinion carries a bit more weight than somebody like me, who has never really been tethered to any of these franchises, even Star Wars, on like a whimsical, even nostalgic level. But like, and from all accounts too, my best friend who loved Dune, the book, was disappointed by the movie. He said the same thing.
Yeah, no.
He said the same thing. He said there's so, and I wonder if Joe, you echo this sentiment. He's like, there's so much rich. He's like, it's not Herbert's novel that neglected the characters and the interpersonal dynamics. He's like, that's the movie's problem. He's like, the movie got wrapped up so much in the world itself and the groundwork and the analytical aspect of it that they forgot to make the characters outside of like Momoa's character, like actually kind of human and kind of fun. Yeah. I was not very, I'll truth be told, and I like him as an actor, I was not very impressed with Timothée Chalamet here. But I think it's more of the fault of the writing too, because for a protagonist, he's just bland. The only two people that really grabbed me in any sort of way, where I'm glad Joe brought her up earlier, is Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica. I liked her a lot. I liked Momoa whenever he appeared on screen. Oscar
well, he's
Isaac
just playing Aquaman in this movie, man. I mean, like
he
that,
really
that
is.
who
But he's
Duncan
a little personality.
Yeah, no, but that is who he is in the book. It's just like he just elevates it to just being Aquaman.
He's okay,
so just have everyone crack jokes. That's the solution.
No, that's
just have everyone crack jokes.
That's not what I'm suggesting. No. I'm suggesting somebody who doesn't talk like this and goes on.
Yes.
An exposition.
Yes.
And we got to get the spice. And the hushed monotone drives me nuts, and it's become more commonplace.
It really sucks because where the book starts out isn't where the movie starts. The book, okay, since I mean we've all seen this in the trailers, and us three have seen it. The book actually starts at the scene where Paul has to put his hand in the box, and this is where he's told the journey and everything. And they don't leave for that planet for a long time. He like Duncan Idaho doesn't leave before he does. Like he stays with him and like trains him, then he leaves and everything. But in the movie, it's Josh Brolin's training his character and everything. There's a lot more scenes between the Duke and Paul, and you really get to the sense of like what the future of the house will be for Paul and everything. And it's just a lot of just great scenes together. And it's like, Dom, as much as you're saying like, oh, just make jokes and everything. The book,
I was being facetious. I was being facetious.
I know you're saying that, and I know you're being facetious about it, but to an extent, like the book at least has moments like that, where it's like there are some funny like moments between Paul and his father and everything, and just like things that they share about their grandfathers, things that they share about like the planets and everything that they've lived on or got to like explore and whatnot. It's some rich history there and some great world building and of course character development. It's not here in this movie at all, except for the two characters that Steve is saying. It really isn't. Timothée Chalamet, and like I'm giving him some slack because it's just like I am thinking it is the writing, because yeah, I've seen him in other stuff too. Can't wait to see him this weekend in The French Dispatch. And knowing the book, it's like, yeah, where we're at in this movie, this is where Paul's not an interesting main character until the second half of the book. So I knew this going into the movie. I was like, yeah, he's probably going to be the mopey kid that he is in the book for this whole movie.
Very opaque.
Yeah. Father, what am I going to do about House Atreides? Like, he does that like in the book and everything.
As an elite impression.
And it's like Oscar Isaac, who is an amazing actor as well, but he's playing it the same way. And to me, like when I was reading the book, that's not how I took the Duke's. Like I took the Duke as like a caring father, honestly. In the movie, I could just write him off as just being like another just overlord of like an army or something. And I was very disappointed to see how he was interpreted in the movie. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. It does suck, and I'm just hoping. Because, again, I keep saying the second half of the book, part 2, is going to be so much better. Because it is. The second half of the book is really what the book is known for. So, to me, and I even, like, this is how I feel about the movie in general. I feel like once part 2 comes out, I feel like you really do have to watch this movie back to back with part 1 as well.
Probably.
It's
Probably.
to me, it's like that to me is like I don't care what anybody could tell me, like, well, no, they're two separate films. It's like, no, to me, like, it's one film. Like, if Zack Snyder can have his 4.5-hour Justice League, then damn it, I want my 4.5-hour Dune. Like, all right.
There's a case to be made for that. I do know that, yeah, one of my main problems with this movie, at least right now, is that it commits the sin that, Empire Strikes Back did, but The Godfather 2 didn't, which is that every single Godfather film, put them together, I think they're fantastic, but you take them apart, they're still fantastic, equally so. Whereas with the Star Wars films, the first one you can watch on its own, second one, not so much. You really do have to watch Empire followed by Return. So with this, with Dune, it's like, okay, will we get over that in 5-7 years when all is said and done and people are going to be watching these back to back? I don't know. I get maybe it's more of a case of marketing, but I do know that, yeah, Steve said it best, is that in terms of the engagement of these characters or lack thereof, it's the movie's problem, because this it's funny. It's like this whole universe, it was 1965, before Star Wars, or maybe after Star. When did Star Trek first come out? I don't know. But
even Doctor Who,
regardless,
hell, throw that in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
66, 1 year before Star Trek. Yeah, this predates so much of established sci-fi today, and yet I don't think anyone's going to come out of here caring about. I can't even remember Paul. No one cares about Paul Atreides. He's just too generic.
There's kind of a reason, and this is probably for the better and why this still is so storied. Not to say Star Wars and Lord of the Rings aren't. There's kind of a reason, though, we really didn't get Dune action figures growing up.
Yeah.
There's kind of a reason for that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but there's a reason this didn't leave like a sweet. It left an impact. I won't say it didn't. Clearly, it did. As a granddaddy of sci-fi, but it didn't leave a cultural impact like Lord of the Rings, like Star Trek, like Star Wars, like its contemporaries.
Yeah. I think it commits the sin of just being very late to the party. Obviously, there's David Lynch's 1984 Dune, which, by the way, I right after coming home, I actually watched. It's like Chelsea. She actually, funny enough, she doesn't watch a lot of movies. She did watch the 1984 David Lynch Dune as one of those like so bad it's good kind of movies. And my God, I was like, yeah, I just can't get over the fact that Sting is in this movie.
It's so funny. Like, you go and you watch the force field scene, like the training sequence in that movie.
I remember that one.
And it's just like you're watching two Lego bricks just go at each other. Compared to this movie,
there's a reason David. I'm not going to say it's abysmal.
No, it's not.
But there's a reason David Lynch took his name off the damn thing.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. If not only the fact that it didn't live up to his personal standards, but I can confidently say it doesn't do Herbert's text much justice.
And the thing is too is like it while it is late to the party, there's no way in hell this movie I think could have been made with the amount of care, effort, and like what we got to see on screen if this came out in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Like, this movie was like, this book was destined to be made with the technology that we have now when it comes to movies.
And it says something too, that the culture has higher standards. The culture has higher standards.
Yeah.
That's why you go back to the early Marvel movies and stuff like that, and you're just like, my God, these things suck for the most part. Daredevil, Elektra, Man-Thing, it's the same thing. You know what I mean?
You know what? This is a Denis Villeneuve, joint.
Yeah.
This is not going to be cash cow to hell like Star Wars. This is from the guy who made Blade Runner 2049. That is hard sci-fi. That is like pretentious level sci-fi.
And I thought you would never get like another movie with that amount of money like he did for Dune after making
This is the guy who made Arrival, right? It's like, and you know what? I'm okay with that. Yeah. Let Dune be the high prestigious thing that it is. Yeah. And maybe, it would have been cool if there was like a cool Lord of the Rings trilogy kind of crossover where it's like mainstream crossover where it's like, yeah, we can make memes about this and enjoy it on a cultural level, but it can still be this high religious thing like it is for Tolkien. But you know what? Just the fact that this franchise gets a second breath of fresh air from the 1984 disaster, I'm cool with it. And the fact that it's getting a part two at all, I'm just happy with all that. I think we should close out of here.
Yes.
Dude, hashtag watch it for the worm. That's it, man. That's your cinematic adventure for the holiday season. I'm not joking. What Hans Zimmer accomplished in providing that theme for that scene, that is like Williams level, John Williams level esque.
That's career highlight reel material.
1000%. Just when you think that guy can't churn out something else, he killed it for that. Like I literally went home and it's like that theme was so good I had to look it up on YouTube. It's that is a highlight for sure. And everything else around it is at worst, I think, serviceable and maybe too generic in terms of sci-fi, but it'll be some good stuff. And I'm very much looking forward to part two. The highest 3 out of 4 stars that I can give this thing, without a doubt.
I'll piggyback off that, and then Joe will close, and we'll move to the next topic leading into Sleepless OT here, as I knew we probably would. But yeah, like I said, I go back to the notion that, or the statement I made earlier, that I feel like I was more impressed than entertained a lot of the time with this movie. But I still think that, you know, I go to the movies quite a lot. We go to the movies quite a lot. I can't say I'm impressed very often or blown away very often. So that's not feigned praise. It sounds like a negative poll quote, but it really isn't. It's more of an attack on the writing than anything. But I do think that with a movie this huge, with a scope this large, and with pressure this big too, let's be real, I think it was well handled. You know, I do think as far as prologues are concerned, this was well done. And I really look forward to Dune Part 2. I really think that, if nothing else, too, will make people like myself probably, hopefully, greatly appreciate Part 1 even more in that context for what's coming. Because I can't wait to watch this again, maybe the morning of going to see Dune Part 2. I think that's probably what I'm going to do. It is the strongest 3 out of 4 stars that I can bestow upon it. But I couldn't get over that hump, though, just coming out of it. Outside of the visual hypnosis, which is the term I keep subscribing to this movie, I can't overcome the coldness I still felt leaving the theater, like, you know, outside of maybe 2 or 3 characters who weren't even the main characters, feeling a little empty. I suspect, especially in the regard of Zendaya, that will change upon Part 2. It's 3 out of 4 stars for me. Joe, what say you?
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you guys, with everything that the criticisms you've brought up, Steve, and all the positives you guys have said. It is a spectacle. I mean, like, the fact that, like, if any of you Dune fans that end up seeing this on YouTube later and get all fed up and angry with us, because I've seen some people give it, like, just straight up 10 out of 10s because, like, they're such big fans of the books and everything. Look, the fact that, like, Steve, Dom, and myself, while we have these criticisms, we're just glowing about this movie and the fact that it actually was made. The fact that a movie that is called Unfilmable was done this damn well. I mean, that in itself should just make you want to go see it. Like, especially if you're familiar with the source material, you'll be like, "Well, damn, he did that pretty good." Like, for myself, removing the book aspect and everything, I look at it as a movie. I watched it twice already. I watched it one more time on HBO Max when I was at home, just to kind of, like, really view it as a movie. It is a spectacle. It is amazing to see, but in terms of storytelling and entertainment, it is lacking there. I've told people, including my own parents, who were interested in going to see this because of all the hype surrounding around it and everything. I told them that, I hate to say it, you're better off watching on HBO Max or just wait for Part 2 to come out and watch them back to back, because then you'll feel like you actually got a complete story here. You felt like something was really whole, and like you'll be more entertained. Because even Denny himself came out and said, yeah, Part 2 of the movie, yeah, it's gonna have everything, like, you know, more of a blockbuster feel to it, because yeah, you're gonna get into what the book is known for. You're gonna get into more battles and everything, because everything now has been put in place. Like, Literally, when this movie ends, I'm like, wow, literally all the chess pieces have been assembled. It's time to play the game of chess now because like everything's ready to go. That's literally all part 2 has to do is just click play, and it's like, all right, cool, 4 out of 4 stars. But for Dune itself, part 1, I almost gave it 2.5 out of 3 stars. I really almost did until like I watched it a second time and really just focused on the filmmaking there and everything because I really was let down by it upon first viewing. I love what he did and everything. This is my least favorite Denis Villeneuve movie, but I was a little bit let down. But I will also go with a big 3 out of 4 stars here.
We've reached the cap with 3 out of 4 stars, I think, for the gravity of the rating.
We need to give start getting into fractional stuff.
No,
yeah, exactly. Or
game.
0.75.
You're lucky I allow half stars at the end of the day. Nah, like I said, and we do it out of 4 too. And one more quick thing I didn't mention in my recap too. I see a lot of movies every year. We see a lot of movies and stuff. Wasn't it great to see a movie with a 9-figure budget that didn't feel like it was assembled in a damn boardroom?
That or was it trying to market you the new toy that you can get at Target? When
it had a vision. Yeah. Like, this is sci-fi with a real brain in its head.
That's the thing is, like, I told my friends this, too, that I saw it with, like, when we got done watching it. And most of my friends did enjoy it. Some of them thought it was okay. But when they asked me, like, is this going to be one of your favorite movies of the year? I said, I'm going to sound really stupid for saying this. No, but I think it's better than most blockbusters I've seen this year, including Shang-Chi. And they wanted to all beat my ass after I said that because they all love Shang-Chi.
That's a good take. I respect that. That's a good take because I can kind of agree with that.
But yeah, it's because, like, I never really get to see blockbusters like this anymore. Like, the last time I saw this was Blade Runner 2049, where it's just like, damn, look how much money was spent on this movie that's not going to even make a fraction of it back.
A legacy sequel, if you will.
Yeah.